The glass of grape juice flew straight toward my white dress. In seconds, the deep purple liquid spread across the fabric, loud and obvious, like a mark meant to shame me in front of everyone. My 8-year-old granddaughter, Skylar Dri, stood there holding the empty glass, a playful, knowing smile on her face. For a brief moment, the room went quiet. Then the living room burst into laughter. "Oh Skylar, you're awful," my daughter-in-law, Tanisha Hayes Dupree, laughed loudly. There was no scolding in her voice, only pride. My son Marcus tried to hide his smile behind his hand, but his eyes were shining with amusement. Other guests stared at my stained dress, whispering and pointing as if I couldn't hear them. "Mommy said you don't belong here," Skylar whispered sweetly, using the fake innocence only a coached child could manage. Her words rang in my ears, clear and sharp. Tanisha didn't deny it. She just kept laughing, cutting more cake, acting as if ruining a 64-year-old woman's dress was perfect entertainment for her birthday party. I stayed seated, the sticky juice clinging to my skin, soaking into the dress I had bought just for this day. I had spent $150 on it, money I truly couldn't spare. I did it because I believed, foolishly, that maybe this time would be different. Maybe my family would treat me with respect. I was wrong. Nothing had changed. Years of humiliation had taught me that, yet I still hoped. My hand shook slightly as I stood, but I lifted my chin. I wouldn't give them the pleasure of seeing me break. Not in front of strangers who would later laugh about the old woman humiliated at a party. "Aren't you going to say anything, Grandma?" Skylar asked in that sugary voice. I glanced at Tanisha, who was still smiling as she served cake, fully satisfied with the scene she had created. "No, sweetie," I said calmly. "I have nothing to say." I walked to the kitchen to clean myself, though I knew the damage couldn't be fixed. The dress was ruined. My dignity crushed. My heart broken once again by the people who were supposed to love me. As I scrubbed the stains with a damp towel, I could still hear laughter from the living room. Someone turned the music up louder, as if my humiliation needed a soundtrack. My hands kept moving, but my thoughts drifted. I thought about all the times I came to these gatherings with hope. All the gifts no one appreciated. All the food no one ate. All the love no one wanted. For years, I believed I was the problem, that I didn't fit in, that I was too old, too boring, too out of place. Standing there in the kitchen, staring at my ruined dress, I finally accepted the truth. They never wanted me there. I was just an obligation, a burden they tolerated because manners required it. The laughter grew louder. The party sounded happier without me. I imagined Skylar being praised for her joke, and Tanisha retelling the story again and again, each time making it funnier. I set the towel down and walked to the front door. No one noticed me leave. No one said goodbye. No one asked if I was okay. I stepped outside quietly, carrying nothing but my purse, my keys, and a heavy understanding. The cool night air hit my face as I reached my car. My hands trembled as I searched for my keys, but not from sadness. This was something else. It was the feeling of finally waking up after a long, painful sleep. Sitting in the driver's seat, I looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were dry. My face showed something I hadn't felt in years, determination. Cold, steady determination. This wasn't the first time my family had treated me as if I didn't matter. As I drove back to my small apartment, memories poured in. For 5 years, every gathering followed the same pattern. Invitations came at the last minute, as if I were an afterthought. "Essie, come for Sunday dinner." Just family. Nothing special. But it was always special, to me. I was there to fill a seat, to make the table look complete. I always arrived with homemade food, waking up at 5 in the morning, spending $30 to $50 I couldn't afford. And every time, my dishes were pushed aside while everyone praised someone else's food. By the end of the day, my containers went home nearly full, touched only out of politeness. I remembered Marcus's birthday last year. I spent $200 I didn't have on a watch he wanted. I took 2 buses downtown because I couldn't afford a taxi. My feet hurt, but my heart was hopeful. When Marcus opened gifts, mine came last. "Thanks, Mom," he said without really looking, setting it aside. Tanisha's gift, a shirt that cost half as much, was tried on immediately. He showed it off proudly all afternoon. My watch disappeared under wrapping paper and napkins. No one noticed. No one cared. It was just another gift from old Essie, expected, unexciting, and easily forgotten. Skylar's big moments were just as painful. Every time she had a school play or a swim competition, I was the only family member who never received a proper invitation. I usually found out by accident, overhearing Marcus talk about it on the phone. Then I would quietly ask if I could come. "Sure, Mom, if you want," he would say, always in a way that made it clear my presence didn't really matter. I still went. I bought flowers using money meant for groceries and sat alone in the back row while Marcus and Tanisha took the best seats at the front. When Skylar stepped on stage or climbed onto the podium, I clapped harder than anyone, my heart full of pride for my only granddaughter. But when it was time for family photos, I was always pushed aside. "It's just for the parents," Tanisha would say with her practiced smile. I stood back and watched them take picture after picture, later posted online. In none of those photos was there any sign that Skylar had a grandmother who loved her deeply and supported her from the stands. Sunday dinners at Marcus's house were tests of emotional endurance. I arrived at noon, exactly on time, the way I was raised. But dinner was never ready until 3. While I waited, Marcus played video games with Skylar, and Tanisha talked on the phone about plans that never included me. "Can I help in the kitchen?" I always asked. "No, Essie. Everything's under control," Tanisha replied, waving me away. So I sat for hours, feeling like an old piece of furniture, not wanted, but not thrown out either. When food was finally served, I was placed in the most uncomfortable chair, usually near the kitchen so I could help if needed. Conversations flowed around me. They talked about people I didn't know, places I'd never been, and outings I wasn't invited to. "Remember that restaurant we went to last month?" Marcus would ask Tanisha. She'd launch into a story about a family dinner I hadn't known about. I ate quietly, wondering why I kept putting myself through this. Christmas was the worst of all. Every year, I spent up to $500 on gifts for Marcus, Tanisha, and Skylar, money I saved for months by working extra hours. I wrapped each present carefully with expensive paper and ribbons, adding handwritten cards full of love. Their gifts for me were rushed, unwrapped, or wrapped in newspaper. Sometimes they were cheap last-minute items. Sometimes they were things they didn't want anymore. Once, Tanisha gave me a half-used face cream, explaining it hadn't worked for her. I smiled and thanked them anyway. That was my role, to accept scraps of affection and act as if they were treasures. Now, sitting in my car outside my apartment with grape juice soaking my dress, I finally saw everything clearly. I hadn't kept going because of love. I had gone because of fear of being alone, fear of admitting that the family I had sacrificed for didn't truly want me. But tonight was different. This humiliation had been public and intentional. It wasn't neglect. It was cruelty. And I had accepted it for far too long. The first time Marcus asked me for money, I was 58 and newly widowed. My husband, Robert Bobby Dupree, had died of a heart attack while gardening one April morning. He left me with a small inheritance and a loneliness I thought my son would help fill. 3 weeks after the funeral, Marcus came to my house, eyes red, voice shaking. "Mom, I need $5,000. It's temporary. I'll pay you back." That money came from Robert's life insurance, money meant to fix the roof and replace old windows. 2 months passed. Then 6. Then a year. When I finally asked about it, Marcus snapped at me. "You're pressuring me for money after you just got widowed? I thought you wanted to help your family." Guilt ate at me. Maybe I was selfish. Maybe a good mother didn't ask. That was just the beginning. Soon it was $3,000 for credit cards. Then $2,000 for an apartment deposit. Then $100 for car repairs. Promises were always made. None were kept. What hurt most wasn't losing the money, it was the lack of gratitude. They acted as if my help was owed to them. Then Tanisha asked me to co-sign for their first house. "It's just paperwork," she said. "You won't pay anything." I wore my best suit, the same one from Robert's funeral, to the bank. I barely understood the contract, but they assured me it was normal. "Just trust us, Mom." So I signed. I signed because I wanted to matter. Because I hoped it would make them value me. Because I believed it would make me the kind of grandmother Skylar would remember fondly. For 2 years, everything seemed fine. Then Marcus lost his job. I found out not from him, but from the bank. "Payments are 3 months overdue," the voice said coldly. When I confronted Marcus, he yelled, "Do you think I wanted to lose my job?" That night, I paid $8,000 to save their house, draining my savings. Marcus muttered thanks. Tanisha said nothing. After that, the calls never stopped. Whenever they were late, the bank called me. I took a second job cleaning offices at night. I worked until my back hurt and my hands cracked, just to keep a house running where I wasn't welcome. They never gave me a key. Never called it my home. Then they wanted a new kitchen. "It's an investment," Marcus said, asking for $4,000. I worked double shifts for 6 months. My feet swelled. My back pain became permanent. All for cabinets Tanisha wanted. The kitchen reveal party had 30 guests. I wasn't invited. I found out through Facebook photos. When I asked why, Marcus said, "We didn't think you'd be interested." It was a lie. My presence would have ruined the image. That was the first time I truly wondered if they were using me. And even then, I still made excuses for them. "They're young," I kept telling myself. "They don't understand the value of money yet. One day, they'll thank me." Looking back, I see how blind I was. How badly I wanted to feel loved. I mistook being used for being needed. Everything changed when Skylar turned 7. I planned her birthday for months, saving every dollar I could to buy her something special. Skylar loved horses, so I spent $300 on a horse-themed dollhouse I found at a downtown toy store. It was beautiful, with tiny stables, horses in different colors, and even small leather saddles. The night before the party, I stayed up until 2 in the morning, carefully wrapping every little piece on its own so Skylar would have many gifts to open. I used gold wrapping paper I had bought just for this occasion and tied each package with pink ribbons to match the decorations Tanisha had chosen. I arrived at the party carrying all the neatly wrapped gifts, excited to see Skylar's reaction. But the moment I walked in, I felt something was wrong. Tanisha greeted me with a stiff smile, and Marcus wouldn't even look at me. "Essie, so glad you made it," Tanisha said in her sweet, fake voice. "Can you put the gifts over there on that table?" She pointed to a small table in the corner, far away from the main pile of presents. It was obvious my gifts were being kept separate, as if they didn't belong with the others. The house was full of children Skylar's age and their parents, people I didn't know, but who were clearly part of Marcus and Tanisha's social circle. I sat alone on a chair, watching my own family laugh and talk with these strangers while completely ignoring me. It felt like I wasn't even there. When it was time to open presents, Skylar went straight to the main pile. She opened a new bicycle from one friend's parents, then a video game from her aunt and uncle, then an expensive doll she had asked for and that Marcus and Tanisha had bought. Each gift was met with loud excitement and happy hugs. My gifts were saved for last. Skylar walked over to the corner table with little interest. As she opened the small packages I had wrapped so carefully, I could tell she wasn't truly excited. Some children got bored, and a few parents started checking their phones. "How pretty, Grandma," Skylar said each time, but it sounded rehearsed, like she had been told what to say. There were no real smiles, no surprise, no joy like she had shown with the other gifts. What hurt most was realizing she didn't understand the gift at all. To her, each package was just another small item. The dollhouse I imagined as one magical set became a pile of random pieces that didn't make sense on their own. "Can I go play with my new bike?" Skylar asked before finishing the last package. Tanisha nodded right away, and all the children ran outside, leaving my gifts scattered on the table like trash someone would clean up later. I sat there, staring at the pieces of my carefully chosen gift lying among torn paper and loose ribbons. $300 wasted. But what truly broke my heart wasn't the money, it was the realization that nothing I did would ever be enough for this family. As I tried to gather the dollhouse pieces, Marcus walked over. "Mom, you didn't have to spend so much," he said in a condescending tone. "Skylar has plenty of toys. Next time, just give us cash. It's more practical." His words hit me hard. After all the years of loans, co-signing, and sacrifices, he was telling me to stop trying and just hand over money. To him, I was nothing more than an ATM with legs. That night, I went home with the abandoned dollhouse pieces and sat alone in my kitchen. I cried for the first time in months. Not because of the money, and not because the gift was rejected, but because I finally understood the truth. I wasn't a loved grandmother in that house. I was just a source of money, tolerated only as long as I was useful. In the months that followed, the requests became bolder. Marcus needed money to fix the air conditioner. Tanisha wanted me to pay for Skylar's piano lessons. Skylar needed new clothes for the private school they had chosen without asking me, even though I was already paying a large part of her education. Every request came with the same attitude: it was my duty as a mother and grandmother. They were never framed as favors or loans. They were demands, disguised as normal family requests. The final straw came when Tanisha asked me to pay for their family summer vacation. "Skylar has never been to the beach," she explained in that soft, manipulative voice she had perfected. "All her friends are going with their families this summer. We don't want her to feel excluded." The vacation package cost $2,500. It was money I didn't have unless I completely drained my emergency savings, but the emotional pressure was overwhelming. The thought of Skylar feeling left out of her classmates' conversations broke my heart. What kind of grandmother would deny her granddaughter important experiences just because of money? So I paid. I worked extra shifts for 3 months to cover the cost without losing all my savings. While I spent long nights cleaning offices until my knees ached, my family enjoyed a week in the Bahamas, posting smiling photos on social media from luxury restaurants and perfect beaches. Was I invited? Of course not. "We didn't think you'd be interested, Mom," Marcus said when they came back, tanned and relaxed. "You're not really a beach person." As if the fact that I had paid for the entire trip didn't even earn me the courtesy of an invitation. It was in that moment, looking at photos of a vacation I had funded but wasn't part of, that something finally broke inside me. What I felt for this family wasn't love. It was an addiction to being needed, a desperate attempt to hold on to some connection, even when it was one-sided and toxic. And now, after the humiliation of that night, after Skylar threw grape juice on me in front of strangers while my whole family laughed, the moment of truth had arrived. I could no longer lie to myself and believe things would improve, or that one day they would truly appreciate everything I had sacrificed. It was time for them to learn how much they depended on the old Essie they loved to humiliate. On Monday morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. I didn't cry during the night. I didn't question myself or replay the birthday events in my head. For the first time in a long time, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I had a quiet breakfast while reviewing the documents I had kept in my safety deposit box for 6 years, loan agreements, bank transfer records, co-signer papers, and receipts for payments I had made for Marcus and Tanisha. Seeing it all together was shocking. I had spent over $43,000 keeping my family financially afloat. At exactly 9 o'clock, I made my first call. I dialed attorney Silas Jenkins, the lawyer who had handled my late husband Robert's will. Silas was 72, but his mind was still sharp. Over the years, he had helped me with insurance matters and work contracts. Good morning, Attorney Jenkins. This is Estelle Dri. I need your help with an urgent family matter. I want to review the legal steps for removing my name as co-signer from my son's mortgage. My voice sounded stronger than it had in months. There was a pause. Silas had known Marcus since childhood and understood how fragile my finances had been after Robert's death. Estelle, are you sure? He asked. If you withdraw your co-signature, the bank could demand immediate payment or even start foreclosure. Exactly, I replied calmly, surprising even myself. That's precisely what I want. I briefly explained what had happened the day before, sticking only to the facts. Silas listened quietly, asking a few questions about dates and amounts. I understand, he said finally. Let me review the contracts. Come to my office at 3 this afternoon. I confirmed and hung up, feeling more alive than I had in years. My second call was to the bank that held Marcus and Tanisha's mortgage. I asked for the loan officer who had handled the original file, David Sterling, a man who knew my payment history well. Mr. Sterling, I need information on how to withdraw as co-signer from the property on Elmwood Avenue. He sounded confused. For years, I had been the one fixing payment problems. Miss Dri, is there an issue? The loan is current this month. There's no issue with the payments, I said calmly. I just want to understand my legal options for removing my responsibility as co-signer. David explained that it was possible, but Marcus and Tanisha would need to qualify for the loan on their own or find another co-signer. Otherwise, the bank could demand full repayment. What's the current balance? I asked. $137,000, Miss Dri. The number hit me, even though it shouldn't have surprised me. Between refinances, missed payments, and interest, the debt had grown far beyond the original loan. I understand, I said. Please email me the full statement and the documents needed to start the process. After hanging up, I made myself a cup of coffee and sat quietly in my living room. I felt no guilt, no regret, only a strange sense of freedom, as if I had finally set down a burden I had carried for years. For the first time in a long time, I went to sleep smiling. 3 weeks after signing the papers with Silas, my phone rang at 6 in the morning. It was Marcus. His voice was nothing like before, no confidence, no entitlement. Only panic. Mom, we got a letter from the bank, he said. They say you're withdrawing as co-signer on our house. This has to be a mistake, right? You wouldn't do this without telling us. I could hear Tanisha shouting in the background about lawyers and lawsuits. It's not a mistake, Marcus, I said quietly. The letter is correct. There was a long silence. I could hear his breathing change as the truth sank in. Why would you do this, Mom? He finally asked. Is this about the party? That was just a kid's prank. Marcus tried to brush everything off, turning what had happened into a harmless child's prank instead of the planned public humiliation it truly was. Of course, Marcus. Kids will be kids. I'm fine, I said briefly. Then I continued, my voice calm but steady. This has nothing to do with a child's prank. This is about the fact that for 6 years, I've been financially responsible for a house where I'm not welcome. A house where I'm treated like a problem, where I'm publicly humiliated and no one says a word. Marcus went quiet. He had never heard this tone from me before. But Mom, this is our home, he said, panic creeping into his voice. Skylar grew up here. You can't do this. This is the house I've been paying for 6 years, Marcus, I replied. A house you bought, remodeled, and enjoyed while I worked double shifts to cover late payments. A house where you celebrated the new kitchen I paid for, without even inviting me to see it. I paused, then added, it's time you take responsibility for your own financial decisions. Before he could respond, I hung up. 5 minutes later, the phone rang again. This time it was Tanisha. Where Marcus had sounded scared, she sounded furious. How dare you do this, Essie, she shouted. We're your family. You're going to let Skylar lose her home over an old woman's tantrum? Her fake politeness was gone. What remained was pure hostility. You decided I didn't have a place in that family, I said evenly. Now you'll learn what life is like without my financial support. That only enraged her further. You're a bitter, selfish old woman, she screamed. You've always been like this. You're destroying your own granddaughter's life just for revenge. She was yelling so loudly I had to hold the phone away from my ear. The only people destroying Skylar's life are her parents, I replied calmly, the ones who chose to spend money they didn't have instead of teaching her respect. I hung up again. This time, I unplugged the landline. Over the next few days, they tried everything to break me. Marcus started showing up at my job, waiting for me in the parking lot. His eyes were red, his face exhausted. Mom, please. Let's talk like adults, he begged. I know you're hurt, but this is going too far. We can fix this. For 6 years, I acted like an adult, I said. I worked extra hours to support your home while you treated me like I didn't exist. Now it's your turn to act like an adult and face the consequences. I walked away before he could respond. Then they sent Skylar. One afternoon, I came home to find my granddaughter sitting on the steps of my building. Her school uniform was dirty, her eyes swollen from crying. She had walked 8 blocks from school, something her parents would never normally allow. Grandma, she sobbed, Mom says you're going to make us lose our house. Is it true? For a moment, guilt tightened my chest. Then I remembered those same eyes filled with contempt as she threw grape juice on my dress. Skylar, I said gently, tell your mom that adults make adult decisions. This isn't your responsibility. I walked her back home, staying firm despite her tears and questions about why Grandma wasn't helping anymore. Marcus and Tanisha were waiting at the door. Their faces shifted between hope and anger. Mom, look what you're doing to Skylar, Marcus said, pointing at her. Is this what you want? To see your granddaughter suffer? What I don't want, I replied, is for my granddaughter to grow up thinking it's okay to disrespect older people because her parents allow it. My words cut the air like glass. She's suffering because you're using her as an emotional weapon instead of teaching her that actions have consequences. That night, someone vandalized my car. The word egoist was scratched across the driver's door, and all 4 tires were deflated. When I called the police, the officer asked if I suspected anyone. I have some ideas, I said honestly, but no proof. He nodded. I suggest installing security cameras. Family disputes like this often escalate. He was right. The next week, someone threw rotten eggs at my door. Then balloons filled with red paint were smashed against my windows. Each act was small enough to avoid serious charges, but clear enough to send a message: I was being harassed. Marcus began showing up at the offices where I worked at night. This is ridiculous, he said one evening. We're family. Families don't destroy each other over misunderstandings. But there was something new in his voice, a threat. Families also don't humiliate their mothers in front of strangers, I replied. If you want to fix this, start with a real apology. We already apologized, he snapped. What more do you want? You never apologized, I said. You minimized what happened and blamed me for being too sensitive. He exploded. Fine. We're sorry. Happy now? Now take your name off the cosign and stop ruining our lives. People came outside to see what was happening. That's not an apology, I said quietly. That's anger pretending to be remorse. I walked away as he shouted insults behind me. That night, my car tires were slashed, and the windshield was smashed. A note was taped to my door. Last chance, you crazy old woman. Sign the papers, or things will get worse. For the first time, doubt crept in. Had I gone too far? Then I remembered the laughter as grape juice soaked my dress. The years of being treated like an ATM. The humiliation I had swallowed in silence. No. I hadn't gone too far. I was just getting started. The call that changed everything came on Wednesday morning during breakfast. It was Brenda Miller, a secretary from the construction office where Marcus had worked years earlier. "Mrs. Estelle," she said nervously, "I need to talk to you. In private. It's about Marcus and some documents we found while cleaning old files. We met that afternoon at a small cafe near my apartment." Brenda arrived holding a manila folder tightly against her chest. "What I'm about to show you could get me into trouble," she said, her hands shaking, "but you deserve to know." She pulled out photocopied documents. "When Marcus worked with us, he handled supplier accounts. We found falsified invoices, materials that were never bought." She showed me the papers. A $300 lumber invoice altered to $1,300. A $200 cement bill changed to $700. At least 15 documents, all showing clear fraud. "How much did he take?" I asked calmly. "About $8,000 over 6 months, she replied. And in that moment, everything finally made sense. The company owner had never pressed charges. Marcus was popular with the other employees, and the boss didn't want trouble. He simply fired Marcus quietly. Brenda looked at me with concern, probably expecting shock or tears. "Why are you telling me this now, Brenda?" I asked. She lowered her voice, leaning forward. "Ms. Estelle, yesterday, Marcus came to the office asking for a letter of recommendation. He said he needed it to prove financial reliability to the bank to get a loan." I felt the pieces click into place. Marcus needed that letter because, without me as co-signer, he had to demonstrate stability to keep the house. He was also trying to spin a story painting me as the irrational villain, preparing the ground for when the mortgage situation became public. "Can I keep copies of these documents?" I asked. Brenda nodded, handing me the folder. "There's more. I spoke with Patrice Washington in HR. She said Marcus had been faking overtime hours on his time cards and selling company tools, keeping the money for himself. The image of my son I had clung to for years shattered. He wasn't an unlucky young man struggling at work. He was someone systematically committing fraud, stealing, and building his lifestyle on lies. Do you know anyone else who might have information?" I asked. She gave me the names and numbers of 3 former coworkers who had witnessed Marcus' misconduct. That night, I called the first, Darren Scott, a construction supervisor. "Miss Dupree, your son has serious honesty problems. I discovered him stealing tools and selling them online. When I confronted him, he threatened to accuse me of theft if I spoke up." The second call was to Patrice Washington, who confirmed the faked overtime and added something chilling. "Marcus had bragged about tricking me into co-signing the house, saying I didn't understand what I was signing and that I could be easily manipulated because I feared losing the family." It hit me like a punch to the stomach. Not only had I been financially defrauded, but I had been emotionally manipulated. My love for him, my fear of loneliness, had been used against me. The third call was Leonard Bell, an accountant for Marcus' company. "Ms. Estelle, Marcus asked me to falsify income statements a few months ago. He offered $500. I refused, but I worry he found someone who agreed." Sitting in my living room with all the evidence spread out, I realized this wasn't just about Marcus. It was a network of lies, deceit, and fraud spanning years. The money I had sent for emergencies had likely been needed because Marcus had lost jobs due to his own theft, not bad luck. The next day, I took everything to Silas Jenkins. His eyes widened as he reviewed every document, every testimony I had gathered in less than 24 hours. "Estelle," he said, "this is serious. Your son has defrauded previous employers and you. This could be enough for criminal charges if you wanted." "I don't want to press charges," I said, "but I need this documented legally in case Marcus tries to sue me or create problems with the mortgage withdrawal." Silas nodded. "We can prepare a sworn statement and alert the bank about the fraudulent income documents. That should protect you." That afternoon, when I got home, Marcus was waiting in the parking lot, but he wasn't alone. 2 men I didn't recognize, both intimidating, were with him. My first instinct was to leave. But something inside me said no. Running would give them exactly what they wanted. "Mom, these are my friends, Alfred and Manny," Marcus said, colder and more calculated than ever. "They think you should reconsider your decision about the house." One man stepped forward, smiling without warmth. "Ms. Estelle, your son told us about your family situation. Families should stay together. Maybe we can help resolve this misunderstanding." "There is no misunderstanding," I said firmly, my heart pounding. "This is a decision I've made after years of mistreatment." The second man laughed cruelly. "Sometimes older people don't see what's best for everyone. Maybe you need help." It was then I understood that Marcus had crossed a line. He was willing to use physical intimidation against his own mother. But he didn't know I had weapons he couldn't imagine. "Marcus, tell your friends to leave. Tell your wife that the threats and vandalism stop now, or all the information I have about your fraudulent activities goes straight to the authorities." His face froze. "What are you talking about?" I showed him a photo of one of the falsified documents Brenda had given me. "This, and much more. Get off my property before I call the police." For the first time in our lives, I held all the power. The summons arrived on a Tuesday morning. It was a formal lawsuit filed by Marcus and Tanisha against me, accusing me of malicious family abandonment and intentional destruction of family assets. They had hired a lawyer named Arthur Trevino, who claimed to specialize in family disputes and elder manipulation cases. When I showed the documents to Silas, he laughed for the first time since taking my case. "Estelle, this is exactly what we expected. By suing you, they've opened the door for us to present all the evidence we've collected about Marcus' fraudulent activities." The lawsuit painted me as a confused, vindictive older woman, supposedly abusing my position as co-signer to emotionally manipulate a young family and take revenge, all while destroying my granddaughter's stability. "Silas, do they really think they're going to win this?" I asked. "They don't expect to win," he replied calmly. "They just want to scare you into withdrawing your co-signer cancellation before trial. It's a legal intimidation tactic. But they don't know we have enough evidence not only to defend you, but to file a counterclaim for fraud and restitution." The next 3 weeks were a whirlwind of preparation. Silas contacted Brenda Miller, Darren Scott, Patrice Washington, and Leonard Bell as witnesses. He obtained official bank documents proving that I had covered $23,400 in mortgage payments over the last 6 years. Every payment Marcus and Tanisha failed to make was meticulously documented. On trial day, I arrived at the courthouse wearing my best black suit, carrying a folder packed with evidence. Marcus and Tanisha sat across the room, avoiding my gaze. Tanisha wore a conservative dress and a practiced victim's expression, while Marcus looked pale and tense. The judge, the Honorable Evelyn Thorne, was a woman in her early 50s, known for her no-nonsense approach to frivolous family disputes. Her first question was pointed. "Mr. Trevino, explain exactly what Miss Dri violated by exercising her legal right to withdraw her co-signature from a mortgage." Marcus' lawyer stammered. "Your Honor, our position is that Ms. Dri is using this right maliciously, intending to cause emotional and financial harm to her family." "I understand your position, Mr. Trevino," the judge replied, unimpressed. "But can you cite any legal precedent that exercising a legal right becomes illegal based on emotional motivation?" Silas presented our defense with calm precision, starting with a complete chronology of my financial support. "Your Honor, Miss Dri is not acting out of malice," he said. "She is acting reasonably after years of financial and emotional abuse." He displayed copies of all bank transfers, mortgage payments, and loans I had provided, totaling $43,200 over 6 years. Then, he introduced evidence of Marcus' fraudulent activities, including falsified documents and sworn statements from former coworkers. Marcus' lawyer objected loudly. "Objection. This evidence is irrelevant to the mortgage cosign." Judge Thorne's eyes hardened. "Mr. Trevino, you opened the door by claiming my client acted maliciously. Mr. Marcus Dri's prior conduct is entirely relevant to establish a pattern of dishonesty." Brenda Miller was the first witness. Calm and composed, she explained the fraudulent documents, Marcus' admissions, and his attempts to manipulate me. Darren Scott testified about Marcus stealing tools and threatening him. Patrice Washington described the faked overtime hours and Marcus' derogatory comments about my naivety. Finally, Silas called me to the stand. My practiced words flowed naturally. Your Honor, for 6 years, I worked double shifts, emptied my savings, and mortgaged my financial future to support a family that treated me like I was invisible. I paid for vacations I couldn't attend, renovations I couldn't enjoy, and a house where my presence was tolerated but not welcomed. I recounted the birthday party humiliation, the grape juice incident, and years of silent emotional abuse. The day my own granddaughter threw grape juice on me while my family laughed, I realized that it wasn't love keeping me supporting them, it was fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of admitting that the people I sacrificed everything for didn't truly want me. When Marcus' lawyer cross-examined me, trying to paint me as vindictive, I responded calmly. No, sir. I am acting because I have been the victim of financial and emotional fraud. My son and his wife built their lifestyle on lies and my money. And when I set boundaries, they responded with intimidation and vandalism. I presented photos of the damaged car, the threatening notes, and the men Marcus had brought to pressure me. After all testimonies ended, Judge Thorne retired to deliberate. An hour later, she returned. This court finds that Ms. Estelle Dupree acted entirely within her legal rights by withdrawing her co-signature from the mortgage loan. Furthermore, there is compelling evidence of fraudulent and manipulative behavior by Mr. Marcus Dupree toward his mother. The lawsuit against Ms. Dupree is dismissed in its entirety. Marcus and Tanisha are ordered to pay all legal costs, $500, and are prohibited from contacting Ms. Dupree or approaching her property for 1 year. Any future harassment will result in criminal charges. Ms. Dupree has the right to live free from threats and manipulation, even from members of her own family. For the first time in years, I felt the weight lift. Justice had finally been served, and I was free. When I left the courthouse that afternoon, Silas shook my hand with a genuine smile. Estelle, you didn't just win a legal case today, you won your freedom. For the first time in 6 years, I felt truly free. 2 years have passed since that trial, and my life has transformed in ways I never imagined. I now sit in the small coffee shop I opened with the money I had once spent keeping Marcus and Tanisha afloat. Robert's Corner, named after my late husband, is a place I can call my own. Each morning, as I unlock the doors, I feel as if he is here with me, proud of the woman I have finally become. The shop is modest, downtown, $900 a month in rent, but it is mine. With the $4,500 in legal costs Marcus and Tanisha were ordered to pay, plus the savings from no longer covering their expenses, I was able to renovate and equip the space. The walls are a warm cream, plants fill every corner, and soft jazz creates a cozy atmosphere. I serve fresh coffee, homemade pastries baked each morning, and simple sandwiches for lunch. Brenda Miller, who testified on my behalf and lost her job afterward, became my first part-time employee. Miss Estelle, she told me, working for you is an honor. Finally, someone values honesty. The coffee shop brings enough income to cover my living expenses and allows me to save a little each month. It isn't a fortune, but it is honest, stable work built on my own effort. Every dollar that enters the register is clean, earned through hard work, not manipulation. Mornings are my favorite. I arrive at 5:30 a.m. to bake, the aroma of cinnamon and coffee filling the quiet space. No phone calls demanding bailouts. No emotional drama. Just honest work and the satisfaction of creating something that brings happiness to others. My regular customers have become a chosen family. Mrs. Hortensia, 75, visits twice a week, telling stories of her grandchildren who actually call to check on her. Mr. Tharmanuel, a widower my age, stops every morning for breakfast. Our friendship is simple and genuine, built on conversation and shared interests, free of drama or expectation. Weekends are filled with poetry readings, board game afternoons for seniors, and book swaps. The cafe has become a community built on respect and shared joy, not forced obligations. The restraining order against Marcus and Tanisha expired 6 months ago, but they have not contacted me. Word through acquaintances is that they lost the house 3 months after the trial. Marcus now works minimum wage landscaping, and Tanisha works full-time at a supermarket. They live within their means, finally. Skylar occasionally comes up in conversation through Mrs. Hortensia. 3 weeks ago, I saw her from the shop window, walking with a friend, laughing, taller and more mature than before. Our eyes met briefly, and I saw recognition, and something like understanding. She had learned, in her own way, that actions have consequences and respect is earned. Silas visits monthly, ordering black coffee and a lemon cake. Estelle, he said during his last visit, you are why justice is worth fighting for. You not only defended yourself, you probably saved your family from much worse consequences. He is right. By forcing Marcus and Tanisha to face reality, I gave them the chance to rebuild their lives honestly. My apartment feels different too. It is no longer a refuge from a family that mistreated me, it is my home. Decorated with things I love, full of books I enjoy, and visited by people who genuinely value my company. Plants, paintings, and a quiet sense of peace surround me. On Sundays, I attend a small church and share lunch with friends who know me as Estelle, the coffee shop owner, not the mother who can be financially exploited. I am 66 now, with a few more wrinkles than 2 years ago, but my eyes sparkle with confidence. I am not rich, and my family does not celebrate me, but I have something more valuable, self-respect and control over my own life. The best revenge, as they say, is living well, and for the first time in my adult life, I am. 6 months later, I received news that Robert's Corner had been named Small Business of the Month by the local Chamber of Commerce. A plaque and article, complete with my photograph, are on the way. For decades, no one in my family saw me as capable. Now, strangers recognize me as a successful entrepreneur making a real contribution to my community. Brenda brought me my coffee that morning, smiling. Ms. Estelle, my daughter asked me if you could give her advice on opening a bakery. She says you're her inspiration for older women who want to keep growing. I laughed, remembering how often Marcus and Tanisha said I was too old to understand the modern world. Mr. Manuel has become more than a customer. We now take Sunday walks together, share apple pie, and enjoy each other's company without expectation. Recently, I expanded the menu to include home-cooked meals. The demand has grown so much that I may hire another part-time worker. Less than 3 years ago, I worried about paying my own bills. Now, I create jobs for others. This Saturday, we will hold our first story swap night, customers sharing meaningful life experiences. The idea came from Mrs. Hortensia, who mentioned that older people often feel invisible in a youth-centered society. My cafe has become a place where life experiences are valued as wisdom, not dismissed as irrelevant. I have found my freedom, my independence, and my purpose. And that, more than anything, is worth celebrating. Yesterday, I received an unexpected letter from Darren Scott, the construction supervisor who had testified about Marcus' fraudulent activities. In the letter, he explained that Marcus had applied for a job at his new company, but Darren had rejected the application because of his past. Ms. Estelle, the letter read, I wanted you to know that your brave decision to expose the truth has protected other employers from being defrauded. Your son needed to face real consequences to have any chance of changing. Reading those words made me pause and reflect. Had my choice really been for Marcus' own good in the long run? I believe it had. For years, my constant financial rescues had shown him that he could escape the consequences of his actions. Now, for the first time as an adult, he was seeing the direct link between choices and outcomes. Brenda told me she saw him last week, working in the garden of a neighbor's house. He looked tired, but focused and serious, something she had never witnessed during his years at the construction office. He seemed to finally understand that honest work requires effort. 2 weeks ago, while organizing old papers, I came across a photograph from the Bahamas vacation I had funded for the family. Marcus, Tanisha, and Skylar smiled brightly on the beach, tanned and relaxed, unaware of the truth behind that trip. For the first time, I could look at that photo without feeling pain. Instead, I felt a quiet satisfaction. Those had been the last vacations funded by unearned money. Any future trips would come from honest work and careful planning. My refusal to continue funding them had been the best gift I could give. My therapist, Dr. Laura Munoz, suggested I start a journal about my experiences. Estelle, she said during our last session, your story could help others trapped in family financial abuse. Many women your age feel stuck because they believe they have no options. I began writing at night, after closing the cafe. Revisiting those years of manipulation and self-deception is not easy, but it is liberating. Putting my story into words reminds me of the strength I found to change my life. Perhaps one day, these reflections will become a book or a series of articles to help others in similar situations. What surprises me most about this phase of my life is how productive I feel. For years, family crises and endless financial emergencies drained my energy. Now, I channel that same energy into creating, building, and contributing in positive ways. It feels as though I've discovered reserves of creativity and ambition that had lain dormant for decades. Last month, a young reporter interviewed me for a piece on women entrepreneurs. She asked if I ever regretted the tough decisions I had made with my family. My answer was immediate: the only regret I have is waiting so long to properly value myself. That line became the featured quote in the article. Since then, several women have come to the cafe to meet me and share their own stories of difficult family relationships. It's comforting to know I'm not alone, and empowering to show that it's never too late to reclaim your dignity. This morning, as I prepared the pastries, I realized November had arrived without me thinking about the approaching Christmas holidays. For decades, this season brought anxiety, extra family expenses, gifts that went unappreciated, and gatherings where I felt unwelcome. This year will be different. Brenda and I plan to decorate the cafe and offer seasonal specialties. Mr. Manuel mentioned he has no plans for Christmas Eve, and Mrs. Hortensia's children won't be visiting. I'm considering organizing a small Christmas dinner for regular customers who, like me, have built their own definitions of family through mutual kindness and respect. I feel happier and more complete at 66 than I have since I was 20. This happiness is different from what I sought for so many years. It doesn't depend on approval or being needed. It comes from within, knowing I built something valuable with my own hands and finally learned to respect myself. Tomorrow will be another day at my cafe, serving people who value what I offer and living life on my own terms. And that is exactly how it should be. Did you enjoy my story? I'd love to hear which city you're watching from. Let's meet in the comments. If you enjoyed this story, you can support me with a super thanks so I can continue sharing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your kind support. On the screen, you'll see 2 new life stories I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel, don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.